He went from 14 units to 6 units, but the 6 units that he bought were some of the most irreplaceable real estate you can find. It's in the Pier Bowl in San Clemente, looking over the pier. Just beautiful property.
Welcome back to the CashFlow podcast, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yoss. And before I get started with my guest today, I want to take a minute to give a special thank you and shout out to our sponsors. First, Rainforest Plumbing, Heating, and Air, covering all of the Maricopa Valley, Phoenix, Scottsdale, and beyond. And as well, I'd like to give a shout out and thank you to Daniels Plumbing. They're covering all of San Diego County, Orange County, Inland Empire, LA County, everywhere in Southern California. Without them, this show wouldn't be possible. And now, I want to say thank you and a good hello to my guest, Jake Schiro. Jake, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Bro, we have chatted a lot about how our podcast is going to be amazing because our voices are just like so special. And I think that we're going to definitely get top results here, you and I both chatting.
Yeah, looking forward to it, you know.
So just getting started, you own a 1031 exchange company, APX 1031 Exchange. Jake, how did you get into that niche? I mean, you could have done anything in real estate. How did you get to 1031?
Well, great question. Well, I actually did get my start in real estate actually on the brokerage side. So I was a multifamily broker prior to getting into the 1031 exchange. On the brokerage side, in multifamily, most of those transactions have a 1031 exchange component. And so I saw opportunity in the marketplace just because we had a lot of clients that would run into issues with getting in touch with their 1031 company or, you know, just a lot of communication issues and customer service breakdown. And with such a time-sensitive transaction, it's really, really critical to be, you know, on it from that side. And I saw, you know, an opportunity to really have a meaningful impact in the industry.
How long have you been in the industry? How long have you been doing it?
So I've been doing 1031 exchanges for the last 6 years.
Really?
Yes.
And what got you started? I mean, was it just like, hey, like I want to move over now and quit my brokerage, or did you do it little by little, and how'd it go?
It kind of started as like, you know, a side business, and then COVID really kind of kicked things into gear.
Right.
So, you know, the real estate market went crazy, and so we got pretty busy to where it became necessary to do it as a full-time situation.
I love that. Now, look, it's definitely difficult to be successful in each one of our fields. Mentorship is a big thing that I lean on. What about you? Did you have mentors on the way? Who were you leaning on to help you on your journey in this niche?
Absolutely. So breaking into the 1031 required, you know, attorneys. And so one of the most impactful mentors that I had when launching the company was a 1031 specific real estate attorney based out of New York that really helped me get everything set up, handle all the paperwork, all the documentation that we needed, and has had a really big impact for us from that side, and still to this day is a mentor for me.
When you talk about 1031s, and I want to unpack some educational, but like talk to me about your philosophy here with real estate in general. I'm assuming 1031 plays a huge part. How do you break that down for people?
Well, 1031 exchange is very, very flexible in what you can do with it. So one thing that I really enjoy doing is helping clients look at what their goals are. You know, what's your ultimate goal here, and like how can we get to there through the 1031 exchange? Because you can go into all different types of properties. As long as it's investment, you're really open as far as what you can do. So I love having the strategy conversations and helping them reach what they're looking to achieve.
That's huge. Focusing on their goals is a big deal. Now, 1031 exchange is probably the most like misunderstood or misquoted or totally off the wall wrong answers with confidence. Like, oh yeah, this is what you do. And you're like, no, you're totally wrong. Let's go over some basics. Let's cover 1031 education. What are some key parts about a 1031? What's it called? Walk me through a process.
Sure. So with the 1031 exchange, you're selling an investment property, using the money to buy another investment property.
Okay. Now the property you're selling, what's that called?
That's called the relinquished property.
And then the property you're acquiring?
Replacement.
And then talk to me about timelines because, again, timelines, I hear all these numbers. Walk me through reality in terms of timelines.
Absolutely. That's a big misconception. The timeline you have from the date your sale closes, you have 45 days to identify your potential replacement properties.
45 days. That
45.
doesn't sound like a lot.
It's not. So that's why you want to really work with someone that's proactive in helping you find what you need to do and also manage those timelines because it's very short. And before you know it, that deadline's up and approaching and on you.
Okay, so you 45 days from the time you close on your old or your relinquished property to identify a replacement property. Now you've identified it. How long after that till you have to close the sale or purchase of it?
So you have to purchase within the next 135 days. So you have a total of 180 days, start to finish, to complete your 1031 exchange.
There we go. And I hear all the time 90 days or where do people get these numbers from?
I don't know.
Is this complicated or
it's not. I don't know why. I hear 90 days all the time, and it's interesting because that's like a multiple in either one, right? It's twice the 45 and half of the 180.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. I have no idea, but truthfully, 45 days. Make note, 45 days is it, and there's no wiggle room there, really.
So all right, so we know our timelines now, and we got our terms out. What would be considered, or what is the secret to a successful exchange?
Advanced planning. You want to plan ahead as much as possible. There is ways through contract extensions and different ways to kind of maximize those timelines, add days to it without being actually under the gun because it doesn't start until you actually close on that sale. So, starting looking once you have a full contingency removal is a really good practice. Maybe starting even making offers at that point. You can have your replacement property in contract before selling, so you could theoretically close and then within a couple days close on your replacement and be done with your exchange in less than a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Got it. Advanced planning. That sounds like a good idea. Obviously, working with someone who knows what the timelines and guidelines are, that's also a huge one as well. All right, well, talk to me about some case studies. You've done a ton of these. Let's go to give me an example of maybe, and I hate to call anybody out, so I got to use a name, but maybe where a client didn't listen exactly to what advice that you're giving.
Yeah, well, one particularly comes to mind. It was kind of just confusing the way that they went about it. But it was a client that they had sold a property here in San Diego, and then they were looking to buy another one, and for some reason, they got their idea in their head. They started talking about an ADU and doing some development within this property, which there is a 1031 exchange that allows you to do, either improvements or also build on the newly acquired property. Right. But there has to be an acquisition, and all of those improvements or all of the money spent on the improvements needs to be used within that 180-day timeline.
Wait. You're saying that you'd have to do those development or improvement within 180 days of the close like that. Who's getting anything past planning in 6 months, let alone?
Nobody. Not in California.
Okay, so you got a client who's like, hey, I want to use some of the proceeds towards improvements. And here in San Diego, what year, when was this?
This was last year.
And how did this client, how'd they get you? A referral or somebody from on your website? Or
they were a referral that came in.
Okay, got it. So, all right, so they wanted to do some stuff. Take me through the process more.
So, they found a property that they liked, and they were able to buy it all cash. They had a pretty, good-sized cash deposit in the exchange. It was an all-cash sale, and they were able to use all but about $300,000 on that purchase. And then we set up the entity. When you do one of these exchanges, it's a special structuring that needs to take place.
Okay.
So we have to set up a title holder LLC that holds title until they complete the construction or improvements, any of that.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so they were set on that, and we were talking through it. I tried to help as much as I could, but I tried to tell her, look, this is probably not going to work timing-wise. You have to not only acquire this, but also complete all of this work within that allotted period of time.
I don't even know you're going to swing a shovel in 60, 90 days, let alone actually have the work done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we also, to add to that, just to kind of cover the bases, knowing that it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to spend this money in this manner, we had advised to maybe, identify some backup properties just in case. So that way, push comes to shove, you can at least close on something, defer the tax, and then move on with your life.
So they had spent most of the cash on acquiring this property with an extra $300,000 that they were going to use for improvements. And you, as the expert, said, look, just in case you can't use these for improvements, have a backup property ready to go so you could funnel that money into the backup property. And that way you're not taxed on any of it.
Right. Exactly.
I'm assuming they listened to you on every step of the way.
They didn't listen to any of it. They ignored all of it. Yep.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So you're getting close to the wire. The clock is ticking. What's going on?
Not much of anything, honestly. Like with them trying to get plans, trying to get everything done, it was just radio silence for most of the timeline.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was not great. And they decided they wanted to buy a manufactured home, place it on there as the ADU.
Okay.
Well, that didn't even work. The ADU didn't even get delivered until after their exchange was completed, and they already had all of this leftover money.
Wow. So how did it end out in terms of, did they spend any of the $300,000? Are they allowed to spend part of it? Like, how does that work?
They spent a part of it on buying the manufactured home that was to be shipped there.
Okay.
But even that probably wouldn't even count because it wasn't able to be affixed to the property and made permanent at that point in time to where it would potentially be booed as well.
So of the $300,000 they had left over to try to be tax deferred, how much it actually got deferred, if any?
Pretty much all of it was taxable at that point. Yep.
Yikes. Basically extra time, energy, all that they were doing, and they still got taxed.
Yep. We hate to have those experiences.
Do you know why, in hindsight, why do you think the client just wouldn't listen? I mean, again, that seems like a complicated 1031. That's not a normal run-of-the-mill garden variety like, hey, I sell this property and I buy this property and it just has to be in 180 days. Why do you think they weren't taking the expert advice?
Well, yeah, we're scratching our heads. We're like, why are they ignoring all of this? Why are they not, at least taking into account the complexity of this? They're a novice investor. This is taking on way more than I think they would be able to handle right out the jump. But she had a family member in her ear that was, guiding her through this and kind of running point. She gave us direction. She's like, she's handling this. We need, listen to her. She's going to help me through this whole process.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, sometimes family members can be great, and then sometimes they could cost you almost $300,000 of taxable money. Yikes.
Yikes. Yeah.
There's got to be wins, though. I know you do this every day. Give us some wins or something that has worked out well.
Well, one story that comes to mind for me, and it was a big personal win because, it was from the brokerage side, actually. Like I mentioned, I've handled 1031s from both sides.
Right.
And one that I really particularly comes to mind, which was one where it's not a traditional strategy, right? Like the gentleman was looking to actually go, he went down in units and down in cash flow.
Really?
So it seems counterintuitive, right?
Got it.
But what had happened was he actually had bought a property inland, in El Cajon years ago that he had ended up buying through a 1031 exchange because he was under the gun and up against the timeline.
Got to get something,
Had to get something. So he placed it into this property that then became a problem child for him, and he didn't want it and had always been looking to exchange and go into a coastal market. Right?
Really? Coastal. Why coastal? What was important about coastal for him in that?
Yeah. So he managed his family's portfolio properties, and everything else they owned was in coastal markets.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So he had this kind of oddity property out just because he was under the gun, and so he was looking to bring it in. So how did you go about this time maybe making the transaction a little more smooth and conservative for him to achieve the goals that he wanted?
Yeah, so what we did, one thing we did, we bought a little extra time with some extensions on the sales side while we're actively looking for all of these properties.
Nice.
Right? And so then on the other side, we were looking in San Diego. We had went through all the market, everything that was out there when he closed, and come to find out nothing really popped there. And so what we did was expand the search. Okay. Their portfolio went up all the way up to Long Beach. So we opened it up to Orange County, LA County, and started looking and ended up finding him just a gem of a property. He was super excited, really, really happy with it. But he went from 14 units to 6 units. But the 6 units that he bought were some of the most irreplaceable real estate you can find. It's in the Pier Bowl in San Clemente, looking over the pier. Just beautiful property.
Gorgeous area. Yeah, great walkable area. You're right. That's not going anywhere. So good. So he basically traded number of doors for maybe a better overall asset and an irreplaceable area.
Exactly. Longer term appreciation. Like that property, what it's worth today, I can't even imagine.
Oh yeah. And again, I just want to point out, like, listening to someone's goals like you talked about totally changed the dynamic here. And I also want to ask you, look, I used to see, I don't sell real estate anymore. I haven't done for a long time. I stick in my property management lane. But when I see the term like buyer will cooperate with seller on 1031 exchange, is that a strategy to write that in a contract, which will allow you to maybe do extensions and things like that?
Yeah, generally writing that into the contract, it's acknowledging that there's a 1031 exchange in place, and just acknowledging, buyer and seller to cooperate with each other's 1031 exchange at no cost or liability to either party.
Okay.
And there's really no cost or liability that should incur. Like the 1031 really is just an additional layer of paperwork that is done, and then the money goes to a different source instead of going to the taxpayer ultimately, but shouldn't really impact the transaction too much.
Got it. That's the one part I do remember always seeing that in there when there was a 1031. And then you talked about an extension. What kind of like tips and tools were you using in order to delay that close, so you kind of delaying that 180 days?
So yeah, you can write into the contract some extensions for the seller to have a 30-day extension or up to 2 options, or just different, writing it into the contract to allow for that to happen. Sometimes you need to release a little bit more money or on a buyer side. Well,
it makes sense, and I totally understand that. The tips and tools to be successful. What in today's market, and the market's always changing, in today's market, like what are you seeing that's a major hurdle in the 1031 aspect?
Well, so on the one thing that we do see, especially now with the shift in interest rates, right? So interest rates back in the couple of years back where they were in the 2s and 3s, nowadays 5, 6, 7s, right? And so to make it pencil on a 1031 exchange is becoming more difficult, or people are needing to bring more cash to the deals when doing it. So underwriting transactions to make them cash flow on the replacement is becoming increasingly difficult there.
What's your strategy when a client comes to you, especially it's their first one? They're like, I heard about 1031, I got this property and I want to move. Like, how do you have that initial console to help, set the right expectations especially in today's market where you just said like, hey, things aren't as easy as they were?
Yeah, so we sit down with them, see what they're trying to accomplish with the exchange. Mm-hmm. One thing that we do find, a lot of our clients at least, we've been coming across a lot more that are looking to go to more passive investments.
Okay.
So we kind of talk with them through that, and their goals is more to be hands off on the property management side. They don't want to really be dealing with tenants anymore, and so they're looking towards putting their properties into fully passive assets, which is something that we are able to help with.
So just touch on that real quick, because I think, owning a rental property is passive. It's not. It's definitely active.
Sure.
But what would be some ideas of a passive investment or property that most people would be like, oh, man, I didn't think about that?
So like Delaware Statutory Trust is the big one that's really gained a lot of popularity in recent years, which is basically buying into a much larger, more institutional grade property at a fractional interest. Think of it like a REIT, but a REIT that qualifies for a 1031 exchange.
Nice. So you don't have to be the number one owner, almost like putting it in some kind of annuity type program.
More or less, yeah.
I love that. All right, as we wrap it up, and I think this is super important, is that with all your experience both on the mortgage side or on the broker side, which is huge, and now after all this time on the 1031 exchange side, if I got out the DeLorean and back to baby Jake time when you were first starting, like, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself when you were starting out?
I think the biggest thing for me, I would say control the things you can control, right? So like you can't control the outcomes that happen, right? You can't control that the client wants to go into something that's just not going to work, right? But you can control what you do. You can control the effort, the energy, what your output is to assist with that situation, right? So control what you can control, and don't worry that, I got a little...
That's all right. I understand exactly what you're talking about. And look, for those of us who are leaders of a company, leaders of a team, like we always want to be perfect and we'll squeeze or micromanage the crap out of anything. So I definitely appreciate that feedback, and it's good for everybody doing a lead. So Jake Schiro, APX Exchange, thanks so much for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody else, thanks for tuning in to the CashFlow podcast, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. We'll see you next week.